Welcome into the Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey. We're breaking down some Cowboys cut candidates with minicamp over, training camp still a month and a half-ish away. Before we get to, I got 5 names I want to break down here. The goal on today's show is to beat the last month's high of 20 shares. I think we can do that. Heck, if you tweet it 20 different times by yourself, we'll actually beat it just like that. It's kind of cheating, but it's fine. So share today's video, Twitter, Facebook, text to a friend, whatever. First up on the Cowboys cut candidate list is Cooper Rush, and I don't think this would be a surprise. What I think might be a surprise is how you'd be able to kind of manipulate things as it relates to Cooper Rush potentially being a cut candidate. Look, Cooper Rush, as we all know, is fighting for the quarterback 2 job. And to an extent, it's almost less about what he does or doesn't do and what Trey Lance does or does not do. Now, because Rush is a vested veteran, he can actually be cut and go right to the practice squad if he's on board with that plan. He does not have to clear waivers. So Dallas could keep Trey Lance and put Cooper Rush as the 3rd quarterback. And you're going, Tom, but do you want the 3rd quarterback on the roster for game days, right? Not so fast, my friends. The NFL has changed the 3rd quarterback rule. It now can come from the practice squad to be that emergency quarterback who can be active. There are unlimited elevations as parts of that. You don't, not just 3 times, it's as many as you want if you're the emergency QB. It does count, though, as one of your 2 call-ups. So if you want to stash someone on your roster, Ryan Flournoy, who you're worried about getting through waivers, you would rather cut Rush. Put him on the practice squad, say, hey, you're going to be our 3rd QB, and you're still going to get your game day checks as well. The Cowboys would save money in the process, by the way. $2.86 million cap hit for Cooper Rush this year. They would save $2.25 million in savings if they were to cut him, which would kind of be canceled out mostly by the game day checks, but it's not like you're going to lose one like you would do if you cut Trey Lance. Rush has been a steady bus driver when he has been asked to play for the Dallas Cowboys. He's not going to turn them over that much. He's not nearly as accurate as Dak Prescott because the big plays aren't as big, but he's been able to stabilize and do the job of a low-end backup quarterback. And there's value in that, by the way. But the ceiling is limited. There was a reason why he was a free agent, and there was 0 starting interest whatsoever. Trey Lance was a former 3rd overall pick. What this backup quarterback battle comes down to is how good does Lance look? If Lance struggles, Dallas is not going to cut Cooper Rush. They will keep him because they need him as the backup. If Trey Lance looks okay, that's a tougher conversation to have then. And if Trey Lance plays well, it starts to make a lot of sense, don't it? So who will be quarterback 2 for the Dallas Cowboys? TL for Trey Lance, CR for Cooper Rush. Go ahead and vote for me at the pinned comment of today's video. You should know what that means by now. If the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there, type in TL or CR. From Peyton Hendershot, or I should say Peyton Hendershot is next up here. This one also probably wouldn't be much of a surprise. I got a couple surprise names we'll get to hear in a little bit. Hendershot's production has been, for a UDFA, pretty decent. 15 catches, 141 yards, 2 scores. Battled some injuries the last couple years into camp this year, and he very much is on the roster bubble. In fact, had John Stevens been healthy and not torn his ACL, pretty good chance they would have put him on the active roster over Peyton Hendershot. They're not going to cut Schoonmaker. Doesn't make sense after just 1 year, as bad as it was. Brevin Spann-Ford can block. Your tight end 3 normally blocks a lot. Princeton fan has gotten a lot of work with this Cowboys organization and offers special teams value. Hendershot's got to showcase what he's able to do. By the way, you lose $5,000 in salary cap space if you cut him versus the guarantees. Under $1 million cap hit, you save all but $5K of that. So it's $5K in dead money. I am sure Jerry spent that in one night at Nick and Sam's by himself. So I am not concerned, about the $5K dead cap hit. That's just the cost of doing business. So when the Cowboys cut players, which probably get a couple cuts in camp, happens every now and then. I wish they shuffled the back of the roster a little bit more, but that's just me. And of course, during roster cutdown time, we'll have a video for you. So do not miss out. hit that sub button right now. Next up is Chuma Edoga, and I don't think he's fully guaranteed a roster spot. Doesn't mean he is likely to make it. I think he is likely to make it, but he's got to earn it still. It is not a lock. Edoga played some last year, 420. Nice. Didn't play well. There were multiple times a game. It's just like, what are you doing, Chuma? He just screwed up the blocking assignment and didn't block the only guy he was supposed to block, or got blown by off the snap. It was ugly at times because he's Chuma Edoga, right? He's a low-end backup. Here's the path for Edoga not making the roster, right? Tyler Guyton starts day one. Tyler Smith, Cooper Beebe, Zach Martin, Terrence Steele are your other starters. TJ Bass has to make this team as far as I'm concerned. Brock Hoffman has to make this team with the way with his coaching staff likes him. All right? So there's 7 guys. I think your 8th guy could very well be Nathan Thomas. The Cowboys like him. He was a draft pick. They like to try to get draft picks on the roster. That leaves 1 tackle, maybe 2, between Matt Waletzko, Awesome Richards, who was also a 5th-round pick. We shouldn't overlook him. Thomas is not guaranteed a spot. So you've got 7 guys, I think, locked in. That's 2 to 3 spots. Might not be Edoga if one of those young tackles, namely Richards and Waletzko, end up, emerging, looking like better than what they've been in recent years. At some point, they're going to hit on one of those late-round picks, right? Along the offensive line. There isn't as much cap savings if the Cowboys cut Edoga, but he's not guaranteed a spot either necessarily. $1.15 million cap hit. They'd save just under $500,000. It's not a lot, but it's not enough that would persuade the Dallas Cowboys from having to keep Edoga if the young guys look better. So prediction time. Does Chuma Edoga make the Cowboys roster this season? Y for yes, N for no. Where else but in the comment section of today's video. So head down there, type in Y for yes, N for no. Chauncey Golston is next up here. D-E, D-T, D-L. It's kind of all over the place there. Golston, as a 3rd-round pick, really hasn't lived up to expectations. The production's been pretty middling. There's special teams value. There's position flex, sure. As we get into year 4, it's kind of put up or shut up time in terms of being able to impress. Now, the one thing that might help him is there's no defensive tackles that are good on this roster beyond Osa Odigizua. We'll see about Mazi Smith, right? Junior Feoko's been getting some run at defensive tackle. What if the Cowboys view Golston as a defensive end and Fehoko is kind of the hybrid guy? They could keep Parsons, Tank, and Williams and Nealand and Fehoko and add a DT and get that number to 4 or 5, and then maybe Golston's on the outside. The only reason he's on this list, I don't know how Mike Zimmer feels about him. And for a guy in the last year of his contract, Zim will get some control over who makes this roster along the defensive line. So it is a prove-it year for Chauncey Golston, who I would keep because I don't have enough defensive linemen on the roster. $1.56 million cap hit, by the way, for Golston. $1.33 million in terms of savings if you cut him. So name a player who you think ends up getting cut. Try to go for the bigger names. We don't think Cam Johnson's going to make this team, probably. We don't think Nate Pete's going to make this roster. So pick a player that's a bigger name that you could see getting cut. Israel Mukuamu is next up here. And again, this is cornerback, defensive back, safety. Very similar vibes for Golston, a player I like, by the way, in Izzy. I thought he played great in that Bucs playoff game. What is he? He hasn't played that much. The game's played high. The production's kind of low because he hasn't played very much, but didn't get beat very much. It was almost one game, and he played well in that game, and he can do safety, can do corner. I think his best spot is at corner in the end. I do. That's where I would want to play him. You have no guaranteed money left on his deal, basically. You save all but $30,000 if you cut him. It's a $1.09 million cap hit, $1.06 million in savings. Nothing that guarantees you a roster spot from a contract perspective. So if we think he's a corner, which I kind of do, there's going to be a roster battle there to make that team. Diggs, Bland, Lewis are locks. Kalen Carson I'd probably put in the lock category as well. There's 4. Let's pretend CJ Goodwin is a core special teamer, probably against the practice squad anyway. So you get 5 to 6, right? Sean Wright, Eric Scott, Israel Mukuamu, Josh Butler. pick those guys. Not a lock. And if he's at safety, or maybe you keep him as your super sub DB, Hooker, Wilson, Bell, Wanye Thomas should make this team. Are they going to carry 5 safeties? They carried 5 previously and more because they were using 3 safeties at almost every play. They're not going to use as much nickel or big nickel and big dime as they did previously. So Mukuamu's going to have to earn a roster spot. Now, if you shared today's video already, do me a favor, help me give you some love by typing me in the comments section of today's show.